Hey Drama 30, my name is Severo Jimenez, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys through an analysis of the film El Norte. I'm going to be talking about the film's political, ethical, and moral aspects of the characters, plot, and settings. And so to give you guys some introduction into the film is broken up into three parts. It's broken up into a first part in Guatemala, a second part in Mexico, and a third part in the United States. And so the film is about two indigenous villagers, Enrique and his sister Rosa. And pretty much the film looks into the political aspect of cheap labor, labor of the lower class, and how it benefits economies and the rich, and how the peasants or the lower class still suffer. And the second political aspect that the movie looks at is immigration to the United States. And we see how throughout the whole movie, throughout each part, how that changes. And we also see how the morals and the ethics of the characters change. And so in the first part of the movie, we start off in Guatemala, and Enrique, the main character, is working with his father, Arturo, who are both indigenous villagers working on a coffee bean plantation. And they're being overseen by like a foreman who doesn't look like them. He's not wearing the indigenous clothes like all the rest of the workers. He's wearing more modern Western clothes, jeans, a button up, and he has a big gun in his waistline. So we could tell right off the back that there's some separation between the peasants and, the corporation. And so at the end of the day, Arturo talks to the rest of the co-workers and tells them, we have to have a meeting tonight and talk about having a labor union to fight back against the corporation. And so that night, before the meeting, Enrique, runs after his father and tells him that he's scared for his father to have this meeting. And his father tells him, he pretty much tells him the main political aspect of the story. He tells him that we can't be going on abused like this. He tells him how the rich came in, they took their land, and now they're benefiting from their land and from their work, yet the poor people are still suffering. And so he tells them the most important thing in the story, which I quote, he says, "To the rich, the peasants are nothing but a pair of arms to work. They treat their animals better than they treat us, and we have been trying to teach them for long that we have hearts, we have souls, and we feel, and we are all human beings." So this pretty much sums up the whole, basic major political aspect of the film. And this really sticks throughout the film, and we'll see how it goes, how it grows from the beginning to the end. And so that night at the meeting, Arturo is killed by a group of government soldiers for them trying to, create this labor union. And so with Enrique's father dead, the next day their mother gets picked up by the government soldiers along with a big group of indigenous people, and they're taken away. So now Rosa and Enrique, they have to figure out a way of how they're going to survive. What are they going to do to escape the army? Which brings us to the second political point, which is immigration to the United States. So they decide to immigrate from Guatemala to the U.S. And before they leave, they decide that they're going to stick together no matter what, because they're the only family that they have left. Just him and his sister. So that is the main moral and the main ethic of the whole film. The staying together of family, the sticking together no matter what society throws at them. So in part two, they travel from Guatemala through Mexico and they make it to Tijuana. And in Tijuana, they get off the bus and there's a big group of coyotes, which are guides that take illegal immigrants to the United States. And all these coyotes are yelling out, pretty much the basics of the American dreams. They're saying that you'll have a big car, a big house, you won't be starving anymore, you won't sleep on the floor, everything's beautiful. So this really boosts up the morale of Enrique and Rosa, and they want to go there even more. And you see in the setting of Tijuana, everything's just very, very dirty, very, impoverished. It's pretty much a shanty town of all houses made out of garbage, houses built out of old wood and mattresses and old cars. And you see the effects of immigration on the town and why these people are immigrating. And so they go with the coyote across the border, but during this crossing, the coyote tries to rob them, and they're picked up by immigration and sent back to Mexico. And they finally meet up with the coyote that they were going to originally go with, whose name is Raimundo. And Raimundo does get them across the border, but Rosa and Enrique had to climb through miles of sewers from Tijuana to San Diego. And during this process, they're attacked by hundreds of rats. And this scene is important because later on we'll see how Rosa gets sick from these rats. But not only is this scene important because it shows how far people are willing to go to get to this country and why they immigrate to this country. And so once they get here, they get to Los Angeles where they live in a rundown motel. And there's a guy named Monte who works there, and he pretty much contracts out all these all these immigrants to big businesses who use them in factories or use them in restaurants or for yard work or whatever. And he's talking to Raimundo, and he's telling them, we're public servants. Without us bringing in cheap labor, this whole economy would crash. Which ties in immigration to the point of cheap labor, labor of the peasants or the lower class, and how it really affects the rich and how it benefits the rich. And so Rosa and Enrique, they pick up low-end jobs. Rosa working in a factory, Enrique working for a restaurant, serving rich people. And Rosa's job gets raided by immigration, and so she goes to work for a rich lady with her friend Nacha, cleaning her house. And Enrique finally gets promoted, and after his promotion, he's offered a job in Chicago. But the only problem is that he can't bring Rosa, but the job is paying a lot more than what he's making now. So he's kind of stuck in between, should he go or should he not? But he sticks with his morals and he doesn't change his ethics, and he stays with Rosa because that's what they planned at the beginning. And so Mocte kind of gets mad at him because he's the one that's trying to hook him up with his job, and he's telling him, you got to leave your sister, you're a man, you need to leave her, just do what you got to do. But it still doesn't affect Enrique, so he just keeps going on with Rosa, and they stay together. And so the next week, Mocte brings up the job again, and he tells him, hey, they said that they'll pay you more, and now you'll get a green card. And so here's where, the main reason why immigrants come here is to get legal. They want to get those papers. And so, again, Enrique's stuck in a hard place on a rock because, he doesn't want to leave his sister, but he would love to have papers. He would love to be able to stay in the country without having the fear of going back to Guatemala and being killed. But again, he sticks to his morals, he sticks to his ethics, and, he stays with Rosa. And meanwhile, Rosa's showing, signs of fever. She's really sick at work. We'll see how it plays on later on. Well, finally, the immigration raids Enrique's work because a jealous co-worker was mad that Enrique got promoted. So Enrique now is out of a job, and now he's really upset with himself for not taking the job in Chicago. And his other co-workers telling him, yeah, you need to leave your sister. You need to do what you need to survive on your own. That's how it is in this country. You need to survive on your own and worry about yourself like everybody else. So now with everybody telling him these things, he changes his ethics, and he decides that he's going to take that job in Chicago. Well, meanwhile, he doesn't know that Rosa's in the hospital. So now he's over here talking to the lady about going to Chicago, how he will take the job and he will go. So right before he's about to leave the house, Nacha runs into their house and tells him, Enrique, the doctor wants you to come to the hospital. Rosa's very sick. And Enrique's like, you know what, I can't. I'm leaving to Chicago. And, Nacha's looking at him like he's crazy. He's like, what do you mean you can't? You have to go. She's sick. He's like, no, I'm leaving to Chicago. And he gets really angry. So now we see that he's totally changed his ethics, and he's not even worrying about Rosa anymore. He's going to go. He says, she'll be fine, but I got to go. And Nacha looks at him, and she says, you know what, Rosa may die tonight, but you're already dead, Enrique. And it shows how, he's lost his soul. He's lost, pretty much he's lost that human side of him, and now he's just chasing money like everybody else. And it really resonates with Enrique because he does end up going to the hospital. And, he sees Rosa, and, she's so happy to see him, and now his morals and his ethics are right back to where he was at, to the beginning, sticking with his sister. And Rosa ends up dying, but before she dies, she tells Enrique, she pretty much sums up their journey. She says, in Guatemala, there's not a home for us. If we go back, they'll kill us. And in Mexico, there's nothing but poverty. Everybody's poor down there. And here in the United States, we're not accepted. And so that pretty much shows the three main parts of the story. And, with her gone, now he's back at the motel, and he doesn't have a job, so he's with all the other day laborers waiting for people to come to pick him up. And so a guy pulls up in a truck, and he yells out, hey, we need men with strong arms.